അവതരിപ്പിക്കുന്നു ഡ്യൂറാസെൽ ഛോട്ടാ പവർ. നിങ്ങളുടെ റിമോട്ടിന് പെർഫെക്റ്റ്. ഇത് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് നൽകുന്നു 1 വർഷത്തെ പവർ. ഒരു സെല്ലിന്
In my estimation, I'll complete in half an hour.
Yeah.
Mr.
Diwan,
Yes.
just before you start, we have seen in Nagraj, both sides, both council have presented. Now, this an element of tradition and custom is being suggested with the Jallikattu and the.
Yeah.
Now, if there is a legislation,
Right.
and of course, we are keeping Nagraj's judgment in mind.
Yes.
Would the custom and the tradition,
Yes.
they have a bearing on our understanding of the situation?
So I think we must, the answer, at least I'll formulate the answer. The issue of culture and tradition and custom and tradition was expressly examined by in Nagraj and was expressly negative. Your Lordship recalls that.
That's why I'm saying,
yes.
I'm putting the caveat of Nagraj first.
Right.
You see, not so much the element of, the spectacular sport, etc.
Right.
But suppose, I'm just posing it to you.
Yes, yes.
Suppose, that was one of the way a man can hope to get married to, like a king's daughter or a wealthy man's daughter by getting hold of the rings on the, trinkets on the horns of the bull. Suppose that was a tradition, one of the way of getting a bride for himself.
Right.
Now, suppose that is a tradition which is continuing for time immemorial.
Right.
In this context, something
Yes.
like that. I'm not talking about this as a sport or a sporting activity, not in
Right.
that sense.
Right. So my answer would be this. So let us keep Nagraj aside for a moment. My respectful submission is.
One question more.
Yeah.
I'm very poor in understanding.
I'm sorry.
I'm very poor in understanding.
I share that trait.
Your reaction was good, Mr. Diwan.
Yeah.
My request is, your yesterday's submission was that this Jallikattu is, as observed by this court, is brutal and cruel.
Yeah, that's a finding of this.
Finding. So as we understand, and rightly understood, in the form in which Jallikattu custom is being organized by these people, that is, the form is cruel, not Jallikattu as such is cruel. The form in which
Okay, so
the custom Jallikattu being organized, that according to his, the finding is in reference to the form. Rightly understood? No.
Well, let me just put it this way. I'll just answer the question itself. Or I'll answer both the questions.
I'm putting next to you. I want your answer first so that I can put the second question to you.
No, so Jallikattu, as your lordships have seen, is statutorily defined, correct? Both under the 2009 Act and under the amendment now. So I will describe it as an event. It's a certain type. It's an event which involves, at least for our purposes, bulls. I don't think you can have.
Why I'm putting this question to you is for one reason.
Right.
When this court examined this Jallikattu in 2014,
correct.
The form was different. After the amendment made, the state government came out with certain rules.
Right.
With precautions to be taken care of under the aegis of the collector. Right. All formalities have to be done by collector, and then it's be. And any person who violate or breach those provisions, there's a penal provision also.
Right.
Now, our question to you is, you have also shown certain photographs to us yesterday.
I didn't show the photographs.
All right.
I showed the report. I read the reports.
Let's go back to the report.
Yes, I showed you the text. Photographs we'll see later. I said in your lordship's time you'll have a look at it.
All right.
I'm glad your lordship looked at the poll.
What we want to show to you is, once the mechanism is at place, with the authorities are put in, under their legal framework, any person who is not following those particular rules, in the manner it has been prescribed, he is violating it.
Yeah.
Penal action is also embedded under the same scheme.
Yeah.
Now, what you have shown to us of 2021 or 20th,
22, I showed you
22.
But we have earlier reports as well.
All right. Even if we take the report on the face value, without being permitting them to come for counter,
which they haven't countered.
They have not countered. At the best, you can say that they are violating the very scheme that they have put in place for the purpose to follow. They have not followed, according to as per the report indicates.
Yes, okay.
Now the question is,
I can certainly say that.
So the question is, if somebody is not following the rules or the mechanism in place
Right.
while organizing these kind of a customary functions there.
Right.
Is the rule bad, or the function, the manner in which is being declared by them, that is bad? But the problem is, I'll tell you one thing.
Right.
At least I admit for myself.
Right.
Rules may be in any form, the ground reality is never matched.
Yeah, that is so.
Very clear. But the only question is, we cannot take a cognizance of the ground reality only because it does not match with the scheme. We have to test the scheme on the floor, not the ground reality. If we start taking the ground reality also in examining the scheme, then it will be very laying down a very drastic situation to us.
Okay, I think these are valid concerns.
So these are our concerns. We want you to project upon us.
All right. So then I might take a little more than half an hour, but I want to first address these concerns. Let me first address the concerns. So I am doing 2 or 3 things at the moment.
Bhaiya,
Sorry.
इसको नीचे करो. We are not seeing the Tushar is sitting.
Problem Manoj, in many courts now, Manoj.
इसको नीचे करो.
While Manoj, we would
Down.
love to see you, and I don't know whether your lordship would love to see us, Manoj. The fact is, we don't get to see you, Manoj.
इसको नीचे कर दो भाई.
It's not you, TV.
No, we're not taking it. I can't see it.
No, that's
You want
impossible.
this? Sorry.
Your lordships are not losing anything.
The screen to be downwards so that we can see the lawyer.
No, exactly. And it's happening in many courts, Manoj, the same situation.
It cannot be just like that.
Yeah, it's difficult,
You'll
it's
have to do it
difficult.
in the recess.
Okay, do it.
More than half an hour. All right. You go ahead.
Yes. Now I'm answering the question, and I'm answering the question on the premise that there is no Nagraj judgment at all. Okay, let's keep aside the Nagraj judgment, because those arguments as to whether you can have a legislation, etc., I have already made. So keep that aside. However, I am relying on the reasoning of Nagraj. Please consider that there is no such judgment, but I am certainly entitled to present before this court the foundational reasoning on this issue regarding culture. Now, the first point I wish to make is that there is an expression, behavioral ethology, which is the science of animal behavior, which is the first point I want to project. So, behavioral ethology, number one, please note that. The second point I wish to project is that there is a certain biological integrity of the animal itself. And the biological integrity comprises 2 elements, the mental as well as the physical element. Now, keeping in mind, over tens of thousands of years since bulls have been domesticated, there is a certain behavior to bulls, which is what I commend to the court. Now, I'll explain that. And there is a certain physical set of traits and mental set of traits to the bulls, which are completely independent of whether there are rules on the ground or there are no rules, because these things we can't change. We can't change these things. Now, what are the basic essential elements? And then we will come to culture, because that's the nub of this entire issue. What the science tells us is that the manner in which a bull is structured as an animal, in contrast to a horse, for example, is number one, the manner in which its legs, its hooves, all of that is discussed in detail. It may not have been read to your lordship, but it's all discussed in detail.
Para 43.
Yes, your lordship is correct. The way it is, the body structure is that if you are going to engage these bulls in a highly stressful situation, they are going to likely seek to flee. And by keeping them in a pen or keeping them in an enclosure and getting people, as your lordship says, to try and mount the bull, etc., in whatever manner, amounts to per se cruelty. So now let me just step back a minute. Let me just step back. Well, now I'll keep aside the bull. There's a notification which your lordship should have seen from the judgment in Nagraj, but we're not citing the Nagraj. There was a notion of performance animals. And your lordship may recall that there were, at least I recall as a child, going to a circus where there would be, for example, there would be tigers, for example, and there was a lion tamer of considerable fearlessness and courage. etc. And there were a whole series of animals which would come in the course in the circus ring. Then we developed the law and found that this itself, having regard to the nature of animal, these are not really performance animals. These are not performance animals, and therefore it amounted to cruelty per se. So, I mean, the ringmaster may be cracking a whip and not actually, the whip may not be actually touching the beast. So, it's not as if the beast is actually being hurt or whipped or lashed. He may be doing it for show as far as his audience is concerned. But the fact that you cage the animal, the fact that you perform the animal within that enclosure, even without hurting him or it or whatever, it still amounts to cruelty in the larger sense. I hope I've made myself clear. So therefore, a whole set of performance animals were taken out from circuses. And we have rules under the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act, etc. And performances today, therefore, in India, you cannot have these type of performances with lions. Why? With lions and tigers. Why? The reason is that is per se cruel, having regard to the nature of the animal, having regard to its body structure, having regard to its well-being. So you may have a tradition, but this has been found to be something, as science advanced, as we developed our understanding of knowledge and animal behavior, etc., bad. Now let's come to bull. So all of that is now out of the window, it's closed and it is over. Now we come to this nature of this very important question on culture, for example. What the court found, and what I am commending to the court even without relying upon the judgment, essentially is that converting a bull into a fighting animal. You will find that expression also in Nagaraj's case. The whole notion and the focus is fighting animals. Making it fight in whatever manner. Its whole reaction of the animal is to flee, actually, if it finds danger. It's fight or flight, and mostly the findings are, in terms of bull ethology, is flight. That's how it has evolved over the years. But if you compel it by having all sorts of noxious things, by prodding it, by physically violating it, etc., it amounts per se to cruel treatment, and the language which is used is very much stronger insofar as the judgment itself is concerned, torturous, etc., etc. So the equation is this: having regard to one, the behavior of the bull, plus two, the anatomy of the bull, compelling the bull to engage in fights, and in this type of what your lordship said, Jallikattu, in the sense the event of Jallikattu, with whatever safeguards, with all the best safeguards, will still amount to cruel treatment which falls foul. So this is the answer.
Why you are saying that they are genetically having the tendency to free?
They are.
Basis for that. You are saying that genetically.
We'll place the science, but the science.
They are having this tendency.
So just have a look at now. I'll go back to the judgment.
That judgment.
No, the judgment is recording
Based on the report.
on the basis of
The report.
No, not on the report. So let me just tell your lordships now. Now I am answering this question.
Only one thing I wanted to point
Yes,
out.
of course.
My current brother has done his graduation in zoology.
Okay, Melo, then I am at a disadvantage. But let me.
That is why we want to know. That is why you say explain genetically.
No, so let me just answer that, Melo. It may not be sort of comport with zoology, but I'll just explain the situation as I understand it on the basis of the findings. Yeah, and actually we've got a huge amount of other material which is zoological, but I didn't have the courage to place it before the court, but now I will, because we'll place that also material before the court. So essentially it is this: as far as the behavior is concerned and the zoological elements are, the behavior, first Melo, I'm on the behavioral aspect. The behavioral aspect, this court, after a study found, on the basis of studies which were placed before it, found that look, there is a flight or fight response which is programmed into this animal over millennia. That's one. And the second element of the zoological element is that the manner in which this bovine creature is structured is such that compelling it to fight, not fight one, even fight amongst it, would amount or cross the threshold insofar as cruel treatment is concerned. So it's based on science, and it's based on an evaluation of the science. Now, it could well be that you have a situation where the science might evolve at some point of time and the science may be different. But today we have the advantage of that happens because scientific studies, that's the nature of science. You question a situation and you find data and material in the future. But the overwhelming material and the data is that as far as the science is concerned, as far as bulls are concerned, they are not, in the manner of speaking, for a contest or a fight biologically between humans and the bulls. That's one. And given I don't want to repeat myself, the element would be. So, let's to answer the question. Yes, there may be a tradition. Let's call it a tradition, or there may be an age-old custom. However, that in itself, with all the protection, would still amount to cruelty. That's my short answer. With all the protective measures, it would still amount to cruelty, and it would be cruelty on this particular species as a whole generally, and it would be cruelty to the bulls which are in the performance arena. These are not performing animals, and therefore the element of cruelty comes in. And so it can't be trumped according to us.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr.
Sorry.
Diwan, perhaps
But I'll revisit these paragraphs.
you have tried to answer this,
Yeah.
but my question still remains.
Yeah.
I'll just put it once again.
Yeah.
You have looked into the element of cruelty so far the bovine animal is concerned.
That's right. Yeah. I have looked at
But
it primarily.
I am also looking at the cruelty to the young man
Yeah.
who is pining to marry the daughter of the local landlord.
Right.
And that Jallikattu is the only chance for him to woo that girl. I'm not saying it in a lighter vein.
Right.
Suppose that is the only opportunity available for the young man
Yeah.
to marry the daughter of the local landlord,
Right.
who has a bull racing or
Right.
bull available in a Jallikattu function.
Right.
What about the cruelty to that young man?
I don't think it's cruel at all. I don't think it's cruel at all.
You are taking away the only opportunity. People prepare, people write poems, people do all sorts of things to woo the girl that they wish to have.
I don't say no. So I would describe this as a deprivation of opportunity for advancement, for sure. But I think a deprivation of opportunity for the young man or the young woman, as the case may be, for advancement is a deprivation of opportunity. It is still not cruelty. The cruelty is being inflicted on an animal which is required on our current understanding of science to do something or perform something which is completely contrary to what the animal in the nature of its design and biological functions, etc., is capable of doing without being cruel.
Anyway,
So this is one element of the answer.
All right.
So I am basically, in one sentence, what I'm answering the question is, in just one sentence, both the sets of questions is, that really the cultural and the tradition argument does not, in my respectful submission, hold water in the sense that if an activity has been found to be cruel even otherwise, independently, on the basis of the science and the material, then I don't believe the fact that there is some cultural advantage to it ought to allow this kind of cruel activity.